Okay, very good morning, all of you. Today we're going to discuss about the concept of exception handling. Earlier we discussed about the concept of packages and the interfaces. Okay, so in that we discussed about the types of interfaces or forms of interfaces, that is a single unitas, multiple, multi-level, hierarchical, and hybrid. Okay. Also, we discuss about the package, how we'll create the user-defined package, how we'll create our own program having same name in different package. Package is nothing but folder. Okay. So now today we're gonna discuss about the next important topic called as exception handling. Okay. So this is the most important topic where we use in the Java, because see, whenever any type of error occurs, when we talk about the error, there are two types of error: compile time error and runtime error. Okay. So whenever we talk about these type of errors, we need to handle that error. Once we handle, then we can able to create our code. Okay. Then what is a compile time error? See, compile time error is nothing but error that occurred due to lack of knowledge of programming. Okay. So that means I can say that simply a poor knowledge of programming language called as a compile time error. And when we talk about the runtime, we will discuss in later. Okay, don't worry about it. When we talk about the runtime error, the error occurred at the time of execution. Okay, so that term called as a runtime error. So we need to handle such a type of error. So before handling the error, first of all, we need to understand the basic concept of what is exception, how we will handle the exception, what are the kinds of exception, what are the ways are available. We will discuss each and every point. So today is the theoretical lectures, and if we get the time, then we definitely we will do the program also. Okay, so for that exception handling we need to cover within a 3 to 4 days. For that exception handling we had to complete this topic within 3 to 4 days. Okay, let's start the session. See, whenever we develop any project, okay, when we talk about the project in Java language, so whenever we develop any project in real time, what is a real time? RTOS. Okay, so real time means at the time of execution. It should work in all circumstances, means any operation either in error or error free. So whenever a developer develops any application or a developer develops any software, that software must be executed in error free environment and with error. Okay, so what does it mean? For example, I had I will give an example. Suppose I develop one application called as a calculator. Okay, so in that calculator, suppose I perform 2 plus 2, 10 plus 2, 10 minus 2, 10 multiplied by 2, then it will be executed. Okay, so that means without error it will be executed. When I trying to execute any number, that means 10 divided by 0, it will get the error. Okay, it is a universal error. If you divide any number divided by 0, then we get the error as an infinity. Okay, so that means whenever we develop any kind of application, that will be executed in the error or error free environment. Make a note of that. So every technology or every programming language, if we use implementing a real-time application, and if the end user commits, okay, end user commits a mistake, then by default that language or technology displays system error message, which is nothing but runtime error. Make a note of that. So ये जो application हम बनाने वाले हैं, so ये इसके अंदर ना make a note of that, end user ही commit करता है. So डेवलपर तो डेवलप करके चले जाता है, और we can say that डेवलपर डेवलप करके एप्लीकेशन एंड यूजर को हैंड ओवर करता है, एंड दैट एंड यूजर विल हैंडल दैट एप्लीकेशन, परफॉर्म द और डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ ऑपरेशन, एंड इफ ही कमिट्स अ मिस्टेक, then the system will generate an error called as a system error, and that is nothing but runtime error. So runtime errors in Java are also known as exception. Make a note of that. We are dealing with a chapter called as exception handling. Make a note of that. We are dealing a chapter with exception handling. So first of all, we need to understand what is exception. What is the exception? And after that, we'll discuss about what is exception handling. So first of all, we need to understand what is the exception. See, a runtime errors. What is a runtime error? I already discussed about that. What is a runtime error? Error occurred at the time of execution. See, so in that, system error is nothing but runtime error. So runtime error is nothing but exception. system error message are those which are unable to understand by the end user or the client. Okay, make a note of that. What is a system error? See, exception क्या है और exception handling क्या है? We'll discuss about that. Don't worry about it. So, what is an error occurred at the time of execution? An error occurred due to the end user. That term called as a exception, or that term called as a runtime error, or we can simply say that runtime error is nothing but exception. Okay, so which type of error we occurred, or each type of error at the time of end user faces, so that term called as a system error. Okay, so the system error message are those which are unable to understand by the end user. ये भी याद रखना है आपको कि सिस्टम एरर जो भी होते हैं ना, फॉर एग्जांपल नंबर डिवाइडेड बाय जीरो, सो वी गेट द अरिथमेटिक एक्सेप्शन, बट इसे एक्सेप्शन के अंदर अगर सिस्टम एरर जनरेट हुआ तो ये एंड यूजर को नहीं समझ में आएगा. सो सिस्टम errors are unable to understand by the end user. User friendly messages are those. See here आपको याद क्या रखना है, रन टाइम एरर क्या होता है, सिस्टम एरर क्या होता है, एंड यूजर फ्रेंडली मैसेज क्या होता है. So user friendly messages are those which are understandable by the end user or client. सिस्टम एरर क्या होता है कि वो एंड यूजर को या क्लाइंट को अंडरस्टैंड हो सकते हैं. सो रन टाइम, system error and user friendly message. What is a runtime error? Error in Java is called as an exception. System error, that error which is not understandable by the client or end user. User friendly message. What is user friendly message? User friendly message is nothing but nothing but those message which can understandable by the end user. So now we will deal with exception handling. See, हमने exception देखा, runtime error is nothing but exception. Now we are dealing with exception handling. See, this system error message will be converted into user friendly message is known as exception handling. Exception handling is the mechanism of converting system error message into user friendly message. अब इसे क्यों हैंडल करना है? See, end user है, end user handling one application or software. And if he commits any mistake, if end user commits any mistake, for example number divided by zero, okay, universal है, okay, या मुझे input चाहिए, proper input चाहिए और दूसरा कुछ input आ रहा है, so this message will be converted, that means system error message will be converted into user friendly message. अभी सिस्टम एरर मैसेज तो एंड यूजर को नहीं समझ में आएंगे, बट यूजर फ्रेंडली मैसेज एंड यूजर को समझ में आएंगे. फॉर एग्जांपल मेरी एरे की साइज है 5 और मैं वैल्यू एंटर कर रहा हूँ 6, दैट मींस एरे आउट ऑफ बाउंड. ओके, सो ये एरर उसे नहीं समझ में आएगा, but still that system error message, if we trying to convert this system error message into the user friendly message, then it is possible to understand by the end user. So exception handling क्या होता है? Exception handling is nothing but it is a mechanism which will convert system error message into the user friendly message. Okay, so just हम try, catch, throw से start कर सकते थे, but we need to understand the theoretical part because interview में जो question पूछे जाते हैं ना, ये यही questions होते हैं. Make a note of that. So आपको concept clear है? What is the exception and what is the exception handling? Exception is a nothing but runtime error, and exception handling is a nothing but conversion of system errors into the user friendly message is nothing but exception. See, now we'll discuss about the what kinds of errors we have, or what are the types of errors. Okay, so there are two types of error. One is the compile time error and one is the runtime. We already discussed about that. Runtime error is nothing but exception. Okay, when we talk about the compile time error, it is not a part of exception. It is not a part of exception and it is not part of exception handling. But still, we need to understand what kinds of errors we have and how we'll deal that. So there are two types of error: compile time error and runtime error. What is a compile time? A compile time error are those which are occurring because of poor understanding of the language. If a person or if a developer had a poor knowledge of programming, then definitely he will get the compile time errors. For example, if you want to define a class, then we will use a keyword class name. But instead of that class, if someone writes PQR and class name, then definitely he will get the error. Because system already defines, if you want to define a class, then we need to use a class keyword. Okay. Similarly, if developer wants to display this message hello world, we need to use a method called as a system.out.println. If instead of that, if developer use system.out.print something, then it will get the error. That means a poor knowledge of programming language. Okay, so called as a compile time error. Make a note of that. If a person having poor knowledge of programming, then definitely he will get the compile time error. Okay, so for example, see, just I will show you. For example, this is my notepad, and here I have defined a class. Here I'm trying to define a class demo. I want to print something. Okay, so what should I do? For that, I want to use system out print ln. Display something. If I trying to write, just I will write a hello. If I trying to write system dot pqr dot println, just I print work, just I display the message, then we'll get the error. अगर ये प्रोग्राम मैं करता हूँ तो will get the error. What is the reason behind that? Because to define any message or to display a message, we need to use system.out.println. But instead of that, just I'm trying to use system.pqr.println. This pqr is undefined, so that's why compiler used error. Okay, if you want to check, just I will show you over here. Here I will write main method, click static side of main. Inside that, I will write a string of args of an array. Now I want to save this program and I will write this name from first. I will save it in a D drive, first.java. Okay, my program is successfully now. I'm trying to execute that program. If you want to execute, then we need to open the terminal. Now this is my terminal. So the D drive. Program is stored in a D drive in the Java folder. My program is successfully saved in the directory of Java. Now we'll compile that program Java C. My program name is a first.java. See, we'll get the, what is the error? See, error cannot find symbol PQR. So this type of error is called as a compile time error. Okay, because poor knowledge of programming language. Okay, so this is time called as a compile time error. So if I try to change this PQR, instead of that, I will use out and I will save that program, and again I will try to compile that program. Then see, the program is successfully compiled and I am trying to run that program. See, get the output. Get the output as a work. Okay, because I want to display the message as a work. See, instead of that, just if you want to display a message like hello world, that program and recompile it. Because make a note of that, whatever you edited or whatever you wrote in a notepad, you need to recompile it. See, hello world. Okay, so make a note of that. There are two types of error. First one is a compile time error and second one is a runtime. What is a compile time error? Compile time errors are those which are occurred because of poor understanding of the language, or I can simply say that poor lack of knowledge, poor knowledge of any programming language. Then it will, then we get the compile time. So what is a runtime error? We discussed about the compile time error. Now, what is a runtime error? See, what is a runtime error? Runtime error are those which are occurring in program when the user inputs invalid data. When user inputs invalid, I'm talking about the invalid data. Okay, So for example, number divided by 0. We all know that. See, I will show you by using a calculator. We'll do the all kind of program, don't worry about it. Suppose 11 divided by 2, we get some output. Suppose 5 multiplied by 5, we get the some output. Suppose 25 divided by 5, suppose we get the output. Because this is a valid data. I am trying to input some value. So what is my input? I had input 10 plus 2. We get the valid output. Okay. But if I trying to enter invalid data, 10 divided by 0, see, we get the error. What is this message? This cannot divided by 0. This is the user friendly message. This one is the exception handling because the system error will be converted into the user friendly message. That's why I can understand this message. Okay. So exception handling का ही मीनिंग यही है कि आपको जो सिस्टम एरर है ना उसको कन्वर्ट कर दो आप यूजर फ्रेंडली में. अगर यहाँ यहाँ अगर अरिथमेटिक एक्सेप्शन दिखाई देता, अरिथमेटिक से इंस्टेड ऑफ दैट कैन नॉट डिवाइडेड बाय 0, अगर आपको अरिथमेटिक एक्सेप्शन डिस्प्ले होता तो आपको क्या समझ में आता? सी, यू आर अ डेवलपर, आपको थोड़ा बहुत समझ में आएगा, बट एंड यूजर को क्या? Those who don't have a knowledge of programming, they did not get the meaning of arithmetic exception. Okay, so that's why I make a note of that. This user friendly system error message will be converted into user friendly message, and a user friendly message. So what is the runtime? So runtime are those which are occurring in a program when the user inputs invalid data. अगर जब user invalid data enter करता है तो ही ये type के error generate होते हैं. Make a note of that. Okay. Now errors, compile time errors, poor understanding of language, runtime errors, invalid input. The runtime error must be always converted by the Java programmer into user-friendly message by using the concept of exception handling. It's a duty of a developer that the system-generated message will be converted into user-friendly message with the concept of exception handling. So यही concept है exception handling का. Okay, so what is the exception? Runtime error occurs called as exception, and system error message will be converted into user friendly message will be called as a exception handling. Make a note of that. ये इंटरव्यू में क्वेश्चन पूछा जाएगा कि what is exception and what is exception handling. Is there any difference between exception and exception handling? So in that case, we need to specify the answer. There is a difference between exception and exception handling. Exception is nothing but a runtime error occurred called as exception. And what is exception handling? A system error message will be converted into user-friendly message called as an exception. तो ये याद रखना है. Second question यहाँ arise होगा, what are the types of errors? So we need to specify the answer, compile time error and runtime error. So again the question will arise, what is a compile time error? What is a runtime error? So we need to specify the answer. Error occurred due to lack of knowledge, lack of programming language called as called as a compile time error. And runtime is nothing but error occurred due to error occurred at the time of execution due to invalid data. Okay, invalid input data, that called as a time error. Now, in Java, runtime environments to perform the kind of operation or task or action that will be performed with respect to either class or interface. So such a kind of exception handling we can carry it out with the help of classes, with the help of interface. Whenever we pass invalid data as input to the Java program, the Java runtime environment, JRE, Java runtime environment, display error message. अभी ये ना important task. अगर आप इंटरव्यू पॉइंट ऑफ पढ़ रहे हो, अगर आप इंटरव्यू पॉइंट ऑफ पढ़ रहे हो या अगर एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ पढ़ रहे हो तो इस पे 101% इस पे क्वेश्चन आएगा. Whenever we pass the invalid data as an input, who processed the error? So in that case, we need to specify the answer, Java runtime environment. So ये validate कैसे होगा? How will convert the system errors into user-friendly message? Before that, JRE, Java Runtime Environment, will analyze whether that context or whether that code contains error or not. So who is the responsible for that? So for the responsibility of that, Java Runtime Environment displays an error message. That error message is treated as a class. Types of exception देखते हैं. In Java, there are two types of exception. Predefined exception, that means which is already defined by the developer, and user-defined exception. अब user क्या है? For example, just I want to find, right? Just I want to write a program which will validate whether the given person is eligible for voting or not. मुझे ये फाइंड आउट करना है कि एक पर्सन है वो वोटिंग के लिए एलिजिबल. वोटिंग के रूल क्या है? If a person whose age is greater than equal to 18 and less than and equal to something, upper limit is 100, assume that. So it would be, just 1 minute. Suppose lower age will be the 18 and maximum age would be 100. 100 के ऊपर भी हो सकती है, but हम कंसीडर करते हैं. So अगर एज 18 से ऊपर 18 या 18 से ऊपर या लेस देन 100 है, then he is eligible for voting. अब मुझे क्या करना है? यूजर डिफाइंड एक्सेप्शन करना है. अगर कोई इनपुट देता है मुझे 101 या -1 या 11 या 10, I want to show a message invalid age. Okay, so that exception will be generated at the time of user exception, user defined exception. हम खुद से भी हमारे टाइप के एक्सेप्शंस बना सकते हैं. मेक अ नोट ऑफ दैट. Okay, now we'll discuss about the predefined exception. Predefined means user defined, like arithmetic exception, array out of bound exception, class not found exception, like that. So these are the predefined exceptions. ये खुद से आने वाले, that means universal, or we can say that universal exceptions भी होते हैं predefined के. So now exception flow कैसे करता है? See, there are two types of exception: user defined exception, predefined exception. Later on we'll discuss about the user defined exception. Now we'll discuss about the predefined exception. Predefined के भी दो टाइप है: asynchronous exception, asynchronous exception. Asynchronous मतलब क्या होता है कि those exception occur due to failure of hardware. अभी से तो हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते. For example, I had a RAM of 4 GB and my application required 8 GB, so 4 GB RAM यूज कर रहा है और वो एक्सेप्शन जनरेट कर रहा है बिकॉज रैम अवेलेबल नहीं है. ये समथिंग कॉल्ड एज हार्ड डिस्क है, स्टोरेज है, सच अ टाइप ऑफ डिस्क फुल है मेरी, बट स्टिल end user wants to perform some operation. So asynchronous exception means the exception occurred due to hardware issue, and exception occurred due to hardware issue called as a asynchronous exception. अब ऐसे एक्सेप्शन जो हार्डवेयर की वजह से आ सकते हैं कॉल्ड एज असिंक्रोनस. सिंक्रोनस मतलब क्या है कि हम हमारे टाइप के एक्सेप्शन है, लाइक प्रोग्रामेटिक एक्सेप्शंस आर देयर. सो द एक्सेप्शन अकर ड्यू टू प्रोग्रामेटिक एरर, फॉर एग्जांपल कंपाइलमेंट रन टाइम. ओके, सो इसके अंदर भी ना दो टाइप के एक्सेप्शन होते हैं सिंक्रोनस के अंदर, called as a checked exception and unchecked exception. Make a note of that. Why we learning this theoretical part? Why we not learning like directly throws, try and catch like that? But ये theory बहुत important है. अगर आप थर्ड ईयर में है, आपको प्रिपरेशन करना है फाइनल ईयर के लिए, या सेकंड ईयर में है, और अगर आपको क्वेश्चन आता है write a short note on exception handling, or we can say that write a program to perform the concept of exception handling, like that. So we need to understand theory. Theory के सिवाय कुछ भी नहीं होता है. Once you get the theory, once you get the basic knowledge of theoretical, then definitely you will implement different kinds of applications. Synchronous exception में क्या होता है? So synchronous के अंदर checked exception होते हैं and unchecked exception. Checked and unchecked में क्या होता है? Check means compile time error. We already learned about that. What is compile time? Lack of knowledge or poor knowledge of programming language. Okay. What is unchecked exception? Unchecked means runtime. An error occurred at the time of execution due to invalid data. Due to invalid data. Okay. So now checked में भी एक कुछ टाइप ऑफ एक्सेप्शन हो सकते हैं, जैसे कंपाइल टाइम में अगर सिंटैक्टिकल हो गए वो भी हो सकते हैं, क्लास नॉट नो फाउंड भी हो सकता है, या इंटरफेस नॉट फाउंड। अभी ये कब तक होता है, अगर क्लास का नाम लिखा है मैंने XYZ और एग्जीक्यूट कर रहा हूँ PQR से, लाइक दैट क्लास नॉट फाउंड हो सकता है, या एनी काइंड ऑफ एक्सेप्शन भी हो सकता है। ओके, सो ये फ्लो है। नाउ प्रीडिफाइंड एक्सेप्शन. Predefined exception are those which is developed by the Sun microsystem. What is the Sun microsystem? Okay, who developed the Java language? Java language developed by the James Gosling. Okay, so इन्होंने ये Sun microsystem में develop किया. Later on ये इनके जो पूरे rights थे इन्होंने Oracle को बेच दिया. But still अगर किसी ने पूछा तो who developed the language? So James Gosling and Patrick, and another is where they develop the Java language in the Sun microsystem. Later on, it will be forwarded or in the Oracle corporation. Okay. So now, as a part of JDK, deal with the universal problem. Some of the universal problems are divided by zero, invalid format of the number. Okay. So number divided by zero called as a universal problem. Invalid format, for example, I want to perform the addition and I'm accepting the number, but the user inputs one as a ONE and two as a TWO in the string format, then definitely it will be generate number format exception. Okay, अगर हम नंबर के साथ में डील करना चाहते हैं और उसके लिए हमने टाइप कास्टिंग भी करवा लिया है, but still user enter कर रहा है ONE and TWO2, I have to perform the addition of 1 and 2 string format, then definitely it will generate the number format exception. अब ये डायग्राम हमें अच्छे से पढ़नी है, फिर पढ़ने के बाद में हम डायरेक्टली प्रोग्रामिंग स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं. टुडे ये ही डायग्राम बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, इसकी थ्योरी. वंस यू विल गेट दिस डायग्राम और ये आपको समझ में आया तो आपको एक्सेप्शन और एक्सेप्शन हैंडलिंग जैसा चैप्टर इजी कौन सा ही नहीं लगेगा. Okay, once we completed this, later on we'll start the multi-threading. Okay, later on we'll start the multi-threading. उसके लिए भी हमें 3-4 दिन लगेंगे. Okay, so till now we had completed 27 lectures. Now today we are completing 28. Okay, so don't worry about that. If you are diploma holder, we'll cover each and every point. Don't worry about it. Okay, so let's do the exception handling. क्या होता है? What is an exception handling? Okay, कैसे occur होता है? See. अभी आपका जावा प्रोग्राम है. दिस वन इज योर जावा प्रोग्राम एंड दिस वन इज अ JVM, जावा वर्चुअल मशीन, दैट एग्जीक्यूट्स योर जावा प्रोग्राम. एंड हु डिसाइड्स वेदर इट इज an error or whether it is whether the given program is executed or not executed? The responsibility for that is a JRE, Java Runtime Environment. Okay. Don't worry about that. I will explain this diagram. Okay, so assume that you had one code. Okay, मेरे पास एक code है and I want to execute that code. Okay, so for that execution of code we require some input. So this is my Java program and that Java program will be executed in the JVM, Java virtual machine, with the help of relevant input, valid input. Okay, so मैं accept क्या करूँगा? Valid. Relevant means valid, irrelevant means invalid. Okay, so just I will accept the relevant input. So Java programs run हो जाएगा JVM में. Okay, so जैसे भी वो execute होगा, forwarded to Java runtime environment. Java runtime environment के पास जाएगा. I'm talking about the relevant input. Okay, so it will throws the exception. अगर प्रोग्राम में कुछ गड़बड़ है, if that program contains runtime error or compile time error, synchronous error or asynchronous error, then it will forward to this class, otherwise it will return to the JVM. अब हमारा तो relevant input है तो ये आगे इधर भी नहीं जाएगा और इधर भी नहीं जाएगा, relevant input है तो. okay, so ये forward back to JVM आएगा और ये message output जो भी होगा वो display हो जाएगा. okay, if it is a relevant input. अब बात करते हैं irrelevant की. okay, irrelevant की अब बात करते हैं. सी दिस वन इज अ जावा प्रोग्राम और मुझे इनवैलिड और irrelevant इनपुट आ चुका है. अब वो एग्जीक्यूट होगा JVM में. जैसे भी मैं JVM में रन होगा, सी दिस वन इज अ स्टेप 1. नाउ दिस प्रोग्राम विल बी फॉरवर्डेड टू द JRE. अब ये प्रोग्राम कहाँ जाएगा? JRE में, स्टेप 2 में. अब JRE में आने के बाद में उसे नहीं पता चलता, एक्सेप्शन तो है, पर बट उसे पता नहीं है व्हाट काइंड ऑफ एक्सेप्शन इज। किसको नहीं पता है? जावा रन टाइम एनवायरनमेंट को पता नहीं है कि एक्चुअली व्हाट टाइप ऑफ एक्सेप्शन इज। एक्सेप्शन तो जनरेट हुआ है बिकॉज ऑफ इरेलेवेंट इनपुट, but what kind of exception is, then he will forward this program or this type to the exception super class। अब ये जो throwable है ना, java dot lang dot throwable, it is the super class of exception। ये क्लास एक्सेप्शन का सुपर क्लास है। इसमें भी इंटरव्यू में क्वेश्चन पूछा जाएगा, what is the super class or what is the base class of exception। हमने इनहेरिटेंस पढ़ा है, डेरिवेटिव क्लास होता है, बेस क्लास होता है। ओके, सो डेरिवेटिव क्लास इनहेरिट द प्रॉपर्टी फ्रॉम बेस क्लास। सिमिलरली जेआरई को पता नहीं है कि व्हाट टाइप ऑफ एक्सेप्शन इज, तो ये फॉरवर्ड कहाँ करेगा? थ्रोएबल। थ्रोएबल इज द सुपर क्लास ऑफ एक्सेप्शन। हार्डवेयर एक्सेप्शन एंड सॉफ्टवेयर एक्सेप्शन, सिंक्रोनस एक्सेप्शन एंड असिंक्रोनस एक्सेप्शन, ये दोनों का ही बेस क्लास या सुपर क्लास थ्रोएबल है। इस पे इंटरव्यू में क्वेश्चन डेफिनेटली पूछा जाएगा। अगर आपने बताया है कि आई एम इंटरेस्टेड और आई हैड अ नॉलेज ऑफ एक्सेप्शन हैंडलिंग, तो सामने वाला डेफिनेटली ही विल आस्क द क्वेश्चन रिगार्डिंग व्हिच इज द सुपर क्लास ऑफ एक्सेप्शन। याद रखना है आपको। तो ये फॉरवर्ड जेआरई किसको करेगा? थ्रोएबल को। तो थ्रोएबल क्या करेगा? वापस जेआरई को फॉरवर्ड करेगा और उसके जो सब क्लासेस है उसमें चेक करेगा कि व्हाट काइंड ऑफ एक्सेप्शन इज जनरेटेड, वेदर इट इज सिंक्रोनस और वेदर इट इज असिंक्रोनस। तो ये थ्रोएबल फिर से जेआरई को फॉरवर्ड करेगा और जेआरई ये थ्रोएबल के सब क्लासेस को फॉरवर्ड करेगा। जेआरई ने फॉरवर्ड किया सब क्लासेस को। नाउ java.lang.error and java.lang.exception, I already discussed about that. This error class and this exception class is a subclass of throwable, is a subclass of throwable, or make a note of that these are the asynchronous exception and these are the synchronous exception। मतलब ये जो एरर क्लास है ना, ये हार्डवेयर रिलेटेड एरर जनरेट हुए तो ये क्लास जनरेट क्रिएट होता है, एंड सॉफ्टवेयर रिलेटेड हो गए तो ये क्लास यूज होता है एक्सेप्शन। ओके, अब इसमें भी क्वेश्चन है, सी आई विल एक्सप्लेन which one is a super class of exception। The answer is throwable। Second question, which one is the super class of hardware? Then answer is error। Which one is the super class of asynchronous exception? Again the output is error। Which one is the super class of the synchronous exception? Called as an exception। Which one is the super class of compile time error and runtime error? Exception। Which one is the super class of error and exception? Throwable। तो ये क्वेश्चन आपको याद रखना है। तो सिंपली बेसिकली यहाँ डायग्राम में ही पता चलता है, throwable is a super class, error is a subclass, exception is a subclass, and this error is used for the hardware related exception and this exception is class is used for the software related exception or compile time or runtime related exception। ओके, अब जैसे भी जेआरई ने यहाँ थ्रोएबल ने वापस भेजा, जेआरई ने फॉरवर्ड किया, अब मुझे आइडेंटिफाई हुआ कि एक्सेप्शन का टाइप कौन सा है, सॉफ्टवेयर एक्सेप्शन है और सिंक्रोनस एक्सेप्शन है। अब ये इंफॉर्मेशन ये क्लास आपको जेआरई को दे देगा, जेआरई फिर जेवीएम को दे देगा, जेवीएम विल जनरेट सिस्टम एरर मैसेज, जेवीएम विल जनरेट सिस्टम एरर मैसेज। अब ये सिस्टम एरर मैसेज आपके स्क्रीन पे डिस्प्ले हो जाएगा। फॉर एग्जांपल नंबर डिवाइडेड बाय 0, तो आउटपुट में आ जाएगा अरिथमेटिक एक्सेप्शन। क्या आ जाएगा? अरिथमेटिक एक्सेप्शन। अब ये तो सिस्टम एरर है, अगर मैंने कैलकुलेटर पे अभी 10 डिवाइडेड बाय 0 और वहां आ जाता अरिथमेटिक एक्सेप्शन, तो एंड यूजर को कैसे समझ में आता? बिकॉज सिस्टम एरर्स आर नॉट अंडरस्टैंडेबल बाय द एंड यूजर। सिस्टम एरर कभी भी एंड यूजर को अंडरस्टैंड नहीं होते। तो जीवीएम ने जो सिस्टम एरर आपको भेजा है, then Java programmer, this one is a Java programmer, and the responsibility of Java programmer, it will convert that system error message will be converted into user friendly message. System error will be converted into user friendly message. Who converts the system error message into user friendly message? Java programmer, and that term called as a exception. इसे हम कहते हैं exception. So make a note of that. So like that, the how exception occurs in Java runtime environment. Just let me quickly revise this diagram. See, if we had a relevant input, then Java program executes in the Java virtual machine, and that information will be forwarded. If the error occurs, then that information will be forwarded to the JRE, otherwise we'll get the output if it is a relevant input. But if it is an irrelevant input, then Java program will be executed in the JVM. Error occurs, that information will be forwarded to the JRE. JRE forward that information to the java.lang.throwable. It is a super class of exception. So it will identify what kind of exception is, then it will forward to the again JRE. JRE will be forwarded to the subclass of throwable. Subclass of the throwable, that is a java.lang.error and java.lang.exception. अब इसके अंदर आने के बाद में whether it is a hardware exception, then error will be generated, and if it is a synchronous exception, then exception class will be generated. अब इसमें आइडेंटिफाई होने के बाद में ये वापस कहाँ आ जाएगा? JRE के पास. JRE again forwarded to the JVM. JVM will generate the system error message. यहाँ तक हमने पढ़ा है system error message. अभी ये जो system error as it is, see अभी आपको दिखाता हूँ ये C calculator है. So 10 plus 2 working है, but 10 divided by we get the output, cannot divided by 0. So this is user friendly message. ये जो आपके सामने दिखाई दे रहा है ना, ये user friendly message है. It is not system error. System error क्या होता है कि arithmetic exception, number format exception, array out of bound exception. Okay, so 10 type of class not found exception. ये टाइप के जो exception होते हैं ना, तो ये इसे बोलते हैं हम system error message और system error. But यहाँ system error आपको सामने दिखाई दे रहा है क्या? नहीं. This one is a user friendly message. So JM ने जैसे भी forward किया है system error को, तो हमें उसे convert करना है. किसे? Java programming is responsible to convert system error message into user friendly message, and that term called as a exception. हमने जितना भी exception handling के बारे में पढ़ा ना, तो ये यहाँ तक. What is exception? Runtime error occurs, called as an exception. If runtime error occurs, called as an exception. What is exception handling? System error message will be converted into user friendly message, called as a exception. अब इसके टाइप्स वगैरह जो है, जो मैंने पढ़ा है वही थ्योरी है, कैसे वर्क होता है. अब इसके टाइप्स है हायरार्की चार्ट ऑफ एक्सेप्शन हैंडलिंग. सी java.lang.object, ये throwable का सुपर क्लास. Throwable is a super class of synchronous, asynchronous exception and synchronous exception. Synchronous में क्या क्या आता है? Stack overflow आता है, या हार्डवेयर के जो भी exceptions है, that will converted into the error. और सॉफ्टवेयर के जितने हैं, दैट में सिंक्रोनस जितने भी अरिथमेटिक एक्सेप्शन है, नंबर फॉर्मेट एक्सेप्शन है, फाइल नॉट फाउंड है, आरए इंडेक्स आउट ऑफ बाउंड एक्सेप्शन है, ओके, ये क्लास नॉट फाउंड है, फाइल नॉट फाउंड है, ये जितने भी एक्सेप्शन आते हैं ये इसके अंदर आते हैं. तो इसमें इंटरव्यू में क्वेश्चन पूछा जाएगा, सी व्हाट इज द सुपीरियर क्लास ऑफ अरिथमेटिक एक्सेप्शन? इन दैट केस वी नीड टू स्पेसिफाई द आंसर ऑफ एक्सेप्शन. What is the superior class of arithmetic exception? What is the superior class of number format exception? Exception. What is the superior class of file not found exception? Exception. What is the superior class of array index out of bound exception? Exception. What is the superior class of stack overflow? Error. What is the superior class of error and exception? Throwable. What is the super class of throwable? Okay, so ये डायग्राम याद रखो और ये प्रीवियसली डायग्राम एक याद रखो, आपको सभी कॉन्सेप्ट समझ में आएंगे. Now tomorrow onwards we'll start the actual implementation of try and catch block, throw and throws. Okay, ये तीनों कॉन्सेप्ट हम देखने वाले हैं. थ्रो एक्सेप्शन क्या होता है, थ्रोज एक्सेप्शन क्या होता है, एंड ट्राई एंड कैच क्या होता है. So tomorrow we'll briefly discuss about only try and catch. Okay, and after tomorrow we'll discuss about throw and throws. Once we completed, then we'll start for the next bit. Okay, till now, if you had any query, let me know. We'll discuss about that. And just I will stop the recording.